Okay, so this is the lesson on how to do the nomenclature for molecular compounds. Molecular compounds mean that they are covalently bonded. So I have some questions here at the beginning that actually are going to come at the end. And then the two sets of rules, whether you're writing the name of the compound or you're writing the formula of the compound. So let's jump into the first part where we're going to write the name. So the first one here is CCl4. So when you're doing molecular compounds, this is pretty straightforward. The only thing you're going to need to know are prefixes and suffixes. So let's talk about that when we get to it. So right now this says first step is determine the name of the first element. And just like anything else, you're going to look at the first element. That's the first capital letter and any subsequent lowercase letters. So we have C. So the first name is going to be carbon, C-A-R-B-O-N, carbon, just regular carbon. It says then the second thing, it says determine the prefix of the first element. Well, the prefix has to do with the fact that how many of them there are. Well, in this case, we only have one carbon. There's only one carbon. There's not more than one carbon. So if there's only one, we're not going to use any prefixes. That's the only time. If there were more than one carbon, we would use a prefix. If there were two, it would be di. If it would be three, it would be tri. 4 would be tetra. 5 would be penta. And all the way up, hexa, hepta, octa, nona. Anyway, so there's only one, so there is no prefix. Okay? The second thing says determine the name of the second element. The name of the second element, so you look at the second element and any subsequent lowercase. And there are it's the chlorine. So, and you're going to change it to an ide, just like you would do an ionic compound. But it's not an ion. It's just that's the name. There are no charges. So carbon, and we're going to chloride. All right, and then determine the prefix of the second element. The prefix, again, if there's only one, you do need the prefix of mono. But if there's not anything else. So this one we have 4. We have 4, and the prefix for 4 is tetra, T-E-T-R-A. So you're going to take the prefix, tag it on before the name of the second element. So carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride, and that's the compound's name. It's just those two elements with their prefixes. Okay? Let's take a look at another example here. In this one, again, we look at the first element. The first element is a S, that is sulfur. So we're going to write down sulfur. And there's only one of them. So there's not going to be a prefix. So it's just going to be sulfur. Sulfur. The second part is the O, which is oxide. And there are 2 of them. That is di. The prefix is di. So it's going to be di with the anion, or the second part name. So it's going to be dioxide. So SO2 is sulfur dioxide. Now when we get to this one, we realize, okay, this one, the first element is nitrogen, but there are 2 of them. If there are 2 of them, that means the prefix is going to be di. All right? So this one is going to be di, and the prefix di, and then the element's name. So dinitrogen. And the first element's name never has a suffix. All right? Second element here is oxide, and there's 3 of them, and the prefix for 3 is tri. So it's dinitrogen trioxide. Okay? So here are the prefixes you will use in molecular nomenclature. 1, there's only one of an atom. It's a mon or mono. Remember, the first element, if there's only one of them, you're not going to use that prefix. But otherwise, on the second element, if there's one of them, you would use a prefix. 2, di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa, all those. The only wrinkle here is all of the ones that end in A, when there's two vowels next to one another, you can drop that that A at the end there. So instead of tetraoxide, you can call it tetroxide or pentaoxide. You can keep it as pentaoxide or pentoxide. Either way is fine with me, and is acceptable with other people as well. At this point, you now should finish the problems, numbers 1 through 10 on the molecular nomenclature worksheet. Work through those and submit them, please.